good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So no matter where you're listening to this, we're wishing you a good life. Welcome to another episode of Motivational Sundays with Kevin and Friends. This episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Our mission is through the power of our story. We want to uplift, inspire, share experiences, and using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Hi, my name is Kevin McLemore. I am your show host, and I'm joined with Otis Spencer, my co-host, Andrea Lyman, Chrissy Everett, and that go-to guy, Ife. This show was originally created from one of the more than 300 quotes that I had used for the contents of my books. Always wondering how different quotes landed on someone else. I was always curious, were the words that just lay there on the page, or were there conversations that need to be had? So I tossed it out there to my friends. We had a couple conversations and we created this show. We meet every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'd like to start on time, but this is not Kevin's world. This is our team's world. So we are delivering to you, and I hope you enjoy it. Today, Otis Spencer is bringing us a wonderful quote. I have not personally met Nelson Mandela. He was on my bucket list to people that I would like to meet personally, but I've been lucky enough to have dinner with his wife, Winnie. So I'll tell that story a little bit later on. So Otis, tell us about the quote you brought from Mr. Mandela and how it lands on you.
Ready? Quote, greatest glory in living lies in never falling, but in rising each time we fall. And for me, just being in the parking industry for many years, I've had my ups and downs. I look back at the days when I was at International Place. I guess that was in the mid-'80s. The regional manager asked me to do a special project, and I said, sure, that's not a problem, but let me do overtime this evening because I'll be doing Spencer for hire the next day. Because I had said that to him, he felt, oh, well, you're a manager that doesn't want to give 110%. So what happened to me, I got demoted down to a night supervisor. Then a few years later, I was manager at the Charles Hotel. I grabbed that position because the existing manager wanted to go out and open up his own pizza restaurant. Stayed there for several months, then just realizing that that pizza restaurant business wasn't as profitable as he thought it was. He came back and said, hey, I want my job back. So this poor guy, me, once again, got demoted and got sent over to Copley Place. And I'd have to work 50 hours plus to try to make up the salary I made as a location manager. Then once again, moved off to another location. And they wanted to move me over to the World Trade Center, Boston. And I said, geez, I'm not sure if I really want to go over to that location. But then your upper echelon says, well, geez, if you don't take it, we don't know what we're going to do with you. Which meant, hey, I'm going to lose my job if I don't take it. So I fortunately had to cave in. I went over there to the World Trade Center. You sat there, your arms folded for a couple of weeks. Hey, I don't really want to be here, but yet I still have a job that I have to accomplish. Stayed there and with various things as we opened up the Seaport Hotel. Had words with our property manager. His idea was, oh, geez, I don't think Otis can handle it any longer because I was working 18 hours plus trying to get the operation set up for the hotel. Then I made several other moves until I ended up in Cambridge, worked at this location in Harvard Square for 11 years, only to find out, had a meeting with the property management and marketing. Hey, Otis is the only manager that gives us ideas for marketing. We were audited. The audited team says Otis is the only one that asks questions about the audit that we're doing to become the only facility or the first facility to get an outstanding score in the audit. So you can't let all these things and people that try to bring you down, whether it's work or personal life, you have to get up and keep going. You have to have a strong will and a desire to succeed.
And it all comes down to your own personal attitude and your will and your desire to succeed. Thank you, Otis, for bringing that. Andrea, she's got some very important business she's got to attend to. So I'm going to segue directly over to you to see how this quote lands on you. And I think it's going to be very powerful considering where you're going next. So Andrea Lyman, president of SAG-AFTRA in the Boston area. How does Nelson Mandela's quote land on you, especially knowing that he is the first Black African that fought for apartheid and was imprisoned for 27 years and became the first president of South Africa? How does that land with you?
Well, especially when you put it that way. I mean, no comparison to what the quote would mean to him and his life. I mean, my life is like this compared to his struggles and his glories. It's an entirely different thing. Mine would be just the tiny thing that almost any artist, I guess, goes through, and that is, you know, every part of your career, it's ups and downs all the time. I mean, constantly falling and constantly auditioning, not getting it, or getting it, feeling like you're not up to the role, you know, all that kind of stuff happens often. But I guess the whole rising each time we fall and all that, sometimes I find when I don't get something else comes along that if you had gotten the first thing, your life would have gone an entirely different direction. And maybe it was a direction that you wanted, you truly dreamed of. But if all of those had happened that way, some other big thing may not have happened. Like, I think when I was in New York, I was in every union except equity, which is crazy because that's a stage union and that's what I majored in and all that. That was my hardest get. And there were a couple of times that I was almost there and I was thinking, oh, if only this had happened, I would have been in equity and my trajectory would have been different because I would have been able to audition for things differently. My career would have been in a different path. But then I look at that, and if my career had been at a certain pathway, I would not have made other decisions later down the line, which ultimately led to me taking in my nephew and raising him. So if my career had been at a different place, I would not have been able to do that. I wouldn't have even thought of it. I would have been living in New York. It wouldn't have been something that came up. And that was a trajectory in my life that changed everything. Would never have given a second of that. But it did mean that certain things where I considered them falls ended up to be a good thing. And I find that a lot of times I'm not getting this role, but then, you know what, if I'd gotten that, I wouldn't have gotten this over here. So it's constant falls. It's constant not getting what you think that you really want. And you just never know where the trajectory's going to lead you. But it's just, you live with the falls.
And that's just part of living. And I thank you for sharing, because, you know, every day is a roller coaster from the time you get up in the morning till you lay your head back on the bed, because we are emotional people and our emotions rise and they fall and so forth. But the one thing that my grandfather always told me, he said, you got to be present. And when something is presented to you and you respond to that, I mean, look at the memories and experience you've had by raising your nephew versus, you know, will you really lose something on that opportunity? You're still in the game. Hope, helping other people every day. You're doing God's will. You know, Nelson Mandela said, you know, when he was locked up for 27 years, he said, you put the body in prison. He said, but what got me through? He said, my mind was always free.
Right.
And as long as you provide opportunity and hope, no matter, that roller coaster would be just like going to amusement park. You'll ride it up, you'll go through the curves whenever, and you'll get off, and you'll go off and do the things you need to do. So stay present. So that was good. And like you're going to do today, you're being present because you're making a difference as being the head of the Screen Actors Guild, and you're standing up for the rights of other people that can't speak for themselves, the Writers Guild. All right. So you're doing it. So you're on the upswing of that roller coaster. Chris Everett. Okay. I'm not going to make light of your tennis career, but I want to go ahead. Beautiful background, and good morning to you, Miss Chrissy. And
Thank you.
how, Otis, can you do this quote for our listeners again? Because you say it so eloquently.
Well, thank you. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising each time we fall.
How does that land on you, Chris?
Yeah, I've so enjoyed what other people have said today, this morning, this afternoon, whatever time you're listening. And can, especially like the artist thing, being an actor and, not getting roles. And what comes to me when I think of that is the greatest glory in living lies not in never falling. And I know that like each time there's been a fall, there's been this feeling of disappointment. And but when I was younger, I would feel that disappointment and I would just wallow in it, and it was just like, why me? How come? Oh no. And and as I've matured, I'll put it that way, as I've matured, that feeling of disappointment, today I'm able to like acknowledge that I'm having this feeling of disappointment, and then move on to the next part of this quote, which is rising, but in rising each time we fall. And so it's just that moment in the middle of that like, because I am human, and you mentioned emotions, we're very emotional beings, and and each time there's a fall, there's some impact, but I get to decide like, how long am I going to let the impact, let that disappointment, let that anger, let whatever emotion comes up because I've fallen, how long I'm going to let that impact me before I rise again. And yeah, we're not done until we're dead. That's what I say.
Exactly.
It's not over until the
Till you
market
fade to
lady
black.
sings.
Right.
Like all that stuff. So so that's what comes up for me, just thinking about like, that moment in between before getting back up again and dusting ourselves off, and and just staying in the race.
Staying in a race. Well, I am going to, and the way this quote landed on me, it hit me at several different levels. It went to the past, the present, and so forth. I shared with you guys, some daily thoughts that I had, and I talked about, the 4 important words that are in my vocabulary. I talked about love, honesty, truth, and respect. But when I looked at this quote and it says, the truth lies in not never falling, I look at my children as I was raised. You bring them into this world and you hold them, you nurture them. And one day, we celebrate the fact that they're standing up next to the coffee table. And as soon as he's able to stand up, he takes a couple of steps. And watch a child. A child just doesn't walk through life. He starts to run. He runs from one room to the other and whatever. He is telling you what life is all about there. And he's smiling, waving his hands in the air. Doesn't really look pretty. He falls down, and guess what happens? He gets back up. And he does that over and over and over again. And then what happens, as we know it, life happens. They push him down. They hold him down. You work a job that you hate going to, but you need the paycheck during the course of a day. So you get up every day, you show up. You're in a relationship that may not be the perfect relationship, and you stay there because you're wanting love. We have a partner that may not be true to you. We have a friend that's not always honest with you, but you continue to be that friend because you think you have hope. And there's some grace of God, that person's going to recognize your truth and says, look, I need to change. But you also have to realize that we're emotional people and we get caught up in our emotions. And sometimes we sit in dark rooms with our hands over our head and we ask, why it's me? Why didn't I get that part? Why did this person break my heart? Why did that person leave me? But the nice thing about life, the only time that your why is never answered is you give up looking for your why. You stop getting back up. To all my listeners, to my co-hosts, when you fall, you're going to get knocked down when someone's in control of your own destiny. But you have the ability to either stand there and take it or walk away and go ahead and live. You have the ability to take that part or go ahead and have that experience of raising your niece or your nephew. You have that opportunity that if someone breaks your heart, you find someone to fill in the gap that will love you at the level that you deserve to be loved. And if you've got that job that you keep saying that you get demoted on or whatever, find a job that will promote your spirit and then go ahead and thrive through that. It's all about choice and chance. So for our listeners, when you listen to this quote, and I'll let, Mr. Otis say it because he says it's so good. Otis, deliver it one more time before we check out today.
Certainly. The greatest glory in living lies in never falling, but in rising each time we fall.
And to our listeners, if you've never fallen, you don't know what it feels like to live because you'll lay there and let life happen to you. So with that said, there's a lot of things going on. Andrea, I know, we got to get you out of here because you're going to be on a picket line. Explain to our listeners and let our listeners give support, and especially my friends that listen to this podcast that are on the West Coast, that are in the film industry, the Secret Society of Black Creators. What are you guys going to be doing today in Boston?
We'll be supporting the Writers Guild of America, who are on strike right now. They're negotiating a new contract with the AMPTP. That's the producers. I don't know what everything stands for, but it's basically the money folks in movies and television. When everything moved to streaming, a lot of the money got swept away. So people that were like the middle class writers lost their way to make a living. They're making a little bit, but like less than minimum wage. So they're fighting for their wages, and then the directors are also fighting for their wages. And then in June, the Screen Actors Guild will be negotiating with the same folks. They basically don't want to change the industry. Everybody can see that the industry changed, so other things need to change too, and they'd rather that not happen.
And I'm going to say to the powers that be, the people that have control over the movie industry, most of us don't have 30 years in front of us, and you have to realize all the things that we have in our living rooms, dining rooms, our bank account, and whatever. When we move on and we get that second date next to our tombstone, you've got to ask yourself, can I take it with me? Mike Tyson said it best, when he talked about it, he goes, what's the good of having all this money if you can't help someone else? Provide someone else that's providing you with the lifestyle you have is the opportunity to have the same benefits and the lifestyle you have based on the sweat and time they spent lonely in rooms writing, rehearsing your words, showing up on time, being away from their family. Provide them with the same opportunity, because the only way that you can get something to grow if you plant a seed into soil that will nourish it, germinate it, and then let it foster and grow. So for you guys that have the power, think about someone other than yourself. So Otis, what's up with you?
Well, there's not too much going on this current week, and looking at Congress not working on the debt, a individual that depends on his Social Security, that will be devastating. And also looking at our unions, and if we go on strike, just means, hey, I might have to go out there and get a regular job to keep things going.
All right. Well, nothing wrong with getting a regular job. I've got one of those while I'm getting things going.
That's right.
We do what we got to do. And in Congress, I don't understand how all you smart people can't balance the budget. You seem to be doing well in your own personal life. You just, for some reason, can't figure out how to help us with our life. Chrissy Everett, I don't want to get on that boat because I think both sides are not serving the people they got voted in to serve. But that's my opinion. So what the heck? Religion and politics, we don't like talking about. All right, Chrissy, what's up?
Yeah, same thing for me, working on getting a script in my head for my June 23rd through 28th, I think, something like that, performance of Confidential Informant. So more of that.
All right. You know, I wish all of you and to our listeners today much happiness, love. Find a little time to sit back, kick up your feet, kick back a little bit, and look at the things that God has blessed you. And with that said, I thank everyone for tuning in, from watching. If you like what you've heard, I've said this 100 times. I would love for you to subscribe and follow. But if you're not a person with a higher call to action, I'm okay with that. Please share this. And if you want to be a guest on, go to my Facebook page. We'll give you the link. Go to info@rmkproductions.org. Request for us to send you the link. We would love to have you and showcase how you feel. We bring nothing but positive vibes in here, even though sometimes the world allows us to talk about some much deeper subjects. But my grandfather always said, when you get to a place you can help someone else, he said it's your duty to do so. Reach one, teach one, and we'll fade to black. Have a great day, everyone.